Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time you're watching this. This is Chatting About Autism with Pro Manhattan. I am Pro Manhattan, and it is 9 a.m. on the West Coast. It is 12 noon on the East Coast, and we've got a really chilly morning this morning. Just freezing to death out here. No, not really, but it's supposed to get really cold, and I think down in the 20s over the weekend. They're even talking about maybe we'll get a little dusting of snow in the lowlands. Let me say good morning to my chat real quick. Francisco was first this morning from Los Angeles, California. Someday I'll get down there. I'm waiting for Disneyland to reopen, and then we're going to take a trip down there. And then I have my car key here, Carol. So good to see you this morning. And you'll see that picture again. In fact, I've got it on one of my slides in my slide presentation. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much for watching the replay. I love my replay watchers. You are what keeps my numbers up, and I thank you. Our time is our most valuable commodity, and that you would choose to give me some of it means the world to me. If you are watching the replay, leave me a comment down below. I love to talk to my viewers. I answer every comment that I possibly can. Ready, Set, Autism family. Hello, Manda. Good to see you. Glad you're here. I think that was all. Oh, and also check out thelifeplace.com. This top 10 myths about autism is part of the Life Places collabathon this week. There's over 30 channels doing top 10 lists. There are channels collaborating together. There are channels doing it individually. And they're all listed on thelifeplace.com, which as of this morning, I think Dean said he's got over 90 live broadcasts a week and over 120 live streamers listed on thelifeplace.com. It is your TV guide for YouTube. Family friendly, safe videos that you can watch in front of your kids, in front of your grandma, in front of anybody, and you are not going to get blindsided with content you may not want to see or hear. It's all in good fun. Covers topics from travel, theme parks, lifestyle, cooking, community, disabilities, you name it. There's something on there for everybody. So go to thelifeplace.com, check out who's showing today and tomorrow and the rest of your week. I promise you will never need cable again or an antenna. Just check out the Live Place. Now then, moving on to what we're talking about today. We are talking about the top 10 myths about autism. And instead of listing the myths, I didn't want to list misinformation. So my list is truths about autism. And we're going to breeze over, actually I have 11 of them for you. I got a bonus one. We're going to breeze over them today. But I think we will use these for the next 11 episodes. And each week we will cover a different truth about autism and get really in depth for it. Who is this video for? This video is for people who are caregivers of someone diagnosed with autism. This is for people who have friends who are caregivers or coworkers or family members who are caregivers of someone who has been diagnosed with autism. This is a safe place. There are no dumb questions. Every question is valid, and we will try and answer every question that we get. I appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate the feedback I got this week. And also on a side note, if you notice it's really quiet today, that is because my son is back in school. They're doing 4 days a week, 5.5 hours a day now. He is just exploding with language and social skills. now that he's back in school. He is so happy. He loves school. He loves being in that environment. And something that I found with my son, and you might find it too in people with autism, that is wherever you set that bar of expectation, they always will go one step above it. And so my son has exceeded our expectations with school. Let's dive into these truths about autism. Let me find my right screen here and do this. And here we are. Top 10 myths about autism, compiled by Pearl Manhattan. So, and there's the picture of my son that Karki was talking about. This was taken in 2010. We were waiting on the school bus. Isn't that just the sweetest little face you've ever seen? And those big blue eyes. My son is just, well, obviously I love him. I love him so much. And that picture is very much what he still is, that little sly smile. He's got a sense of humor. That little sly smile that you wonder just what's going on behind those big blue eyes. Autism is not a disease. It's a collection of behaviorals and developmental delays. It's not viral, bacterial, or contagious. There's research that says it may be genetic, but they haven't proven that yet. In the 50s and 60s, they attributed it to parenting, which is not true. That the mothers had failed to bond with the child, and that's why the child was delayed in several areas. And I can tell you that's not true. From my personal experience and from what I've seen, I've known people with autism who had the most loving caregivers in the world. I know with my son, I've devoted my entire life to raising him in love and high self-esteem and positive environments. And he still has autism. You can't love it out of him, but you can love them still, okay? But it's not contagious. And the main thing is it's not the parent's fault. There's no blame. There can't be. It's a collection of behaviors. It's not something that you gave to your child. Someone can be verbal and not conversational. A lot of times, nonverbal is a label applied to someone with autism because they do not interact socially. I can assure you, my son is very verbal. He displays something that's called echolalia, which is sometimes referred to as parroting. He sings, he chatters, he repeats commercials and TV shows. He is a running dialogue. Blah, 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 blah. Just talk, 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 talk. But he doesn't say anything. If I ask him a question, he will struggle to answer me. It takes him a while to process what he's heard and then to form a response to answer me. He learned early in life that a lot of the time, if he just says yes, people are okay with that. It's an answer. So a lot of times he uses the word yes to just signify, I heard you and I'm giving you an answer, so you will leave me alone, But nonverbal does not necessarily mean they don't talk. It means they don't socially interact verbally. This is a big one. A person with autism has feelings. They have emotions. They have likes and dislikes. My son does not like vegetables. That's perfectly normal dislike. How many 15-year-old boys do you know love vegetables? He prefers to live off peanut butter sandwiches and pizza. Well, when I was 15, I preferred to live off peanut butter jelly sandwiches and pizza too, you know. And they have feelings, they have emotions, they have wants, they have goals and dreams. My son wants to go to college. My son wants to design video games. Even though he is not considered nonverbal, he has feelings. He doesn't always want people to be his friend, but he does get lonely. He does get sad. He hears the news on the TV, and he still needs some help processing what he hears and what he sees and how to feel about things. He understands what COVID is. He understands that it's a flu and that he has to wear a mask and that he can't go all the places we want to go and things like that. And so don't underestimate that your child doesn't care about what's going on. They care very deeply in most cases. They just don't know how to express that the concerns and the cares and the joy and the worry. So a person with autism, they do have emotions. They do have feelings. They're not just this drone. Vegetables or anything Mexican. Yeah. There you go. And that goes into one I've got later down the road. And we'll come back to that. But yeah, and I got to say, I got to hand it to you with two children with autism in the family. Let's go back to this one, and we'll stop on this one for a bit and talk about it. I only have the one child who's diagnosed with autism. My older two, though, I believe they are on the spectrum, but I can't diagnose that. They had a lot of, my oldest especially, many sensory issues. We thought she just didn't like certain foods, but when it came down to it, when she put them in her mouth, the feeling of the food would make her throw up. So we thought, oh, you must be allergic to it. There must be, some allergy there. But no, it was purely sensory. As I've said before, I used to put a cotton sock on one of her feet and a nylon sock on the other foot, and she would walk funny because she could feel the difference in the two socks. So having two kids with autism that you can see the similarities but also see the differences. And let's see. That's a big thing for my son. He always has good verbal skills, but has just begun to share feelings with me verbally. And yeah, Karki, and I'm sure that you learned early that even though he wasn't expressing himself verbally about how he felt, there were ways that he did, there were ways that my son has learned to express those emotions. I've probably told this story before, and I'll tell it a million times again. My son learned to use television shows to communicate with me. He was outside playing in his little swimming pool, and he came running in, and he was waving his hands like this and jumping up and down. He was very agitated, and all of a sudden he grabbed the remote and he found an episode of Wonder Pets where there was a bee that needed saving. And he played the song, Save the Bee, Save the Bee. If you know Wonder Pets, you know that part of it. And he played it over and over again, and he drugged me to the TV, and he played it again and again. And I looked at him and I said, "What are you trying to tell me?" And he grabbed my hand and he started to lead me outside. Well, it turns out there was a bee who had gotten into his swimming pool and was stuck in the water in the swimming pool. And so I scooped him out and set the bee on a bush, and we stood there and watched as it dried out its wings and it flew away. And he looked at me and smiled. So he learned to communicate those emotions with me through the television, and I could tell how his school day went by what he was watching when he came home and went in his room. So let's see. Yes, they're both autistic, but definitely different. She can't talk at all. He doesn't stop talking. Isaac is extremely routine driven, and Malia just goes with the flow. Is it Malia? Yeah. And with my son, he's a little of both. We love routine. We love writing things on the calendar. We have the school bus schedule on a whiteboard in the kitchen. But then he's also flexible in that I can say, "Hey, we're going on a road trip," and he's very spontaneous also. He likes spontaneous stuff too. So he's a little bit of both. Yeah. And that's the thing. Malia. Well, it's a beautiful name. I love that name. And that was one that I should have put in here, that girls get diagnosed with autism too. I think a lot of times in the past, it wasn't in the less severe cases of autism, a lot of times in girls was overlooked because of the gender roles that we used to prescribe to our children, in that boys were okay being boisterous and loud and running around and acting, but girls were supposed to be demure and quiet and shy and, seen and not heard. And so I think a lot of times, and maybe not smart in math or things like that. And so we overlooked a lot of girls who actually have autism because of the expectations, the gender expectations that we put on our children. And I think it's getting more and more attention now. So, yeah, if you tell him, you can just give him a heads up and don't blindside him. And honestly, I'm that way, and I'm not diagnosed on the spectrum, but I don't like being surprised. My kids learned early. Don't come in the door from school and say, "Hey, Mom, I'm going so-and-so right now." No, you tell me the day before, "Hey, Mom, I'm going over to so-and-so's house tomorrow." Don't show up at my house and say, "Hey, let's go." I'm not that way. And I'm not even on the spectrum. So, moving on. Autism can affect your motor skills and cognitive abilities. My son's stims. His stim is jumping up and down and waving his arms. And his legs, sometimes his legs just get going without him. We had a physical therapist for a while and worked on walking. Sometimes with the cognitive and the motor skills, my son can't, because of the sensory issues, my son can't tell where his body is in space. His balance gets off, and his concentration he has to work so hard to focus on muscles hanging on. He'll forget to hang on to the pencil that he's writing because there's so much going on up here, you know. But yet my son can type about 35 words a minute. So it can affect the motor skills and the cognitive abilities, the balance. That's why they do a lot with the swinging, using swings and things like that to kind of recalibrate the balance centers in the ear. And so the kid can learn where their body is in space. We adapt to it, neurotypical people neuroadapt to it pretty easily. But, you know, like with my son, he's going through puberty right now. And he's going through growth spurts. And every morning he wakes up and his arms are half an inch longer than they were the night before, or his legs. So we have that complication. We usually think that, you know, teenagers are kind of clumsy, but it's because their body is growing so fast. But tack onto that, you know, balance issues and motor skills and the patience to put together a puzzle and things like that. And it can just really throw the kid. So I learned to let him stim, you know. He's going to be fidgety. And there are so many toys out there now and assistive devices that you can get to help your child with those urges. Her birthday is coming up, but she won't be having an actual party. CJ has never had a birthday party because it's too much. It's overload for him. All those people around him, and he doesn't like being the center of attention. He doesn't like... He likes the song Happy Birthday if he's singing it by himself, but too many people singing it and it gets too much for his sensory. Too many bright colors gets too much for his eyes, things like that. So we have a little private party with just me and him, and we have a cake. And this year I let him pick out, swimming. Yes, my son loves swimming. We had a bad experience when he was a toddler that I took him to a sensory swim session at the local YMCA, and he was apprehensive to get in the pool. And but the person leading it said, no, just take him and hold him and get him into the pool. Well, he was screaming the whole time, and the more he screamed, the more the leader of the group told me, no, just keep holding him, he'll get used to it, he'll get used to it. And the mom in me was saying, no, he doesn't like this, he doesn't want to be here, it's too loud, it's too echoey, there's too much going on. But I thought, well, this person's the expert, I'll listen to them, and held him in the pool. And finally, when we got out, it got to where if he smelled a swimming pool or anything that smelled like a swimming pool, he was out of there. He became very emotionally upset, and he was out of there. And a couple years later, I managed to get a vacation, and my son stayed with his oldest sister and her partner, and they decided he was going to go swimming. So they sent me a video a couple days into my vacation of my son jumping into the deep end of the pool, laughing and cheering. And ever since then, he loves swimming. Absolutely loves it. And I think I agree. That's why, because it supports and holds his body. It gives that compression. The water gives the compression. And personally, I found that compression just, they can feel their body, you know, because the air pushing on your body, you don't really feel it. But in the water, that's a sensory thing, and it's very calming. I mean, who doesn't like being in a pool, honestly? And I got this apartment because it had a swimming pool. And the first year we lived here, the pool was closed because of maintenance reasons. And then COVID hit. So this last summer, the pool was closed because of COVID. Maybe this coming summer, it will be open and we can go swimming again. Autism isn't something new. A lot of people are like, wow, where did this autism come from? It must be because of our environment, because of the chemicals in our environment, because of this, because of that. No, it's because we changed the way we look at our children, and we changed the... Yes, you can put your... Yes, exactly right. My son loves to lay with just his face out of the water and his ears under the water because it's quiet. Which is funny because when he's here in his room, he turns up 17 different sounds, music and TV and stuff to help him drown out everything that's going on. But autism was around way back when. We just didn't call it autism spectrum disorder. We just lumped it under a group of what are now considered offensive words and derogatory words. But they were just slow, but it's not something new. It's been around for a long, long time. We're just now starting to ease up on our expectations of our children, I think. And it's becoming more prevalent. And also, we're not getting advice from the medical community that a child who isn't neurotypical doesn't deserve to be in society. We're putting these children in public school. We're finding the least restrictive environments. Public Law 94-142, yes, it addressed those in wheelchairs and things like that, but I think it also did an awful lot for autism spectrum disorder because now we have legal supports to back us up that, yes, our kids need individualized instruction. Adults can be diagnosed with autism. It's not just a children thing. It's a lifetime thing. It's a way of life. But we're finding now that adults who were who thought they just slipped through the cracks or just weren't as smart as anybody else, and now they're going through and going back and going, oh, wait a minute, you have the sensory issues, you have the cognitive and the motor skills. Oh my gosh, adults can be diagnosed with autism. The thing there is, you can't self-diagnose yourself. Just like with anything else, don't Google and go, hey, I have these things, I have autism. And it was a common thing for a while that people would say, oh, I have Asperger's because I have this, and that. Do you have a diagnosis for it? It can be dangerous to self-diagnose. And that's all I'm going to rant about that. Autism doesn't mean low intellect. But on the same note, autism doesn't mean you're going to be all right, thank you, Karki. Thank you for being here. Have a great day at work, the rest of your day. I hope it's wonderful, and I'm sure I'll see you online tonight somewhere. Autism doesn't mean low intellect, but it doesn't mean you've got a super genius. One question I got very tired of when I first started out with my son's diagnosis was, what's his special gift? Well, he's not a savant. He's not like Rain Man. I'm not going to take him to Vegas, okay? We're not going to count cards. But my son did teach himself to speak about 8 different languages from watching the closed captioning on YouTube and watching videos in different languages. He's almost fluent in Spanish. And nobody in the house speaks Spanish. Nobody in school was speaking Spanish to him. He taught himself. You might consider that a special gift, but no, he just didn't have other kids to play with. He wasn't involved in sports. That's what he did, was watch YouTube videos. He excels in math when given the opportunities, but it frustrates him just as much as it frustrated me to deal in math. He reads. He could read any word written. He can read nonsense words. His sense of phonics is phenomenal. However, he doesn't understand what he reads. So with every special gift comes another side of it that it's a deficit too. So it doesn't mean that he's dumb, but it doesn't mean he's super smart either. I got to scroll down here in my little thing. Here we go. The causes of autism are still unclear, and so there's no cure for it at this time. I met a lot of parents when when my son first got his diagnosis. We were involved in some early intervention programs and parenting groups and things like that. And parents wanted the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder so they could get the cure. And I know I fought with it an awful lot, that if I just got him to enough therapists, we did enough therapy, we did enough nutritional support, we did enough of this. If we did all the things right, then the autism would go away, or he'd grow out of it, or, he'd get better. And it took me a very long time to realize, no, autism is a collection of behaviors and developmental delays, and he's always going to have them. We can teach him how to adapt and, and turn his limitations into things that propel him forward, but there's not a cure. This is a way of life, and that can be hard to come to terms with. Adaptability, and I like to tell people my son is just one click out of phase with this dimension, and he always will be. I can work as hard as I can to give him the skills to be a contributing, functioning member of society and to live as an adult in his least restrictive environment, but he is always going to have autism. It's not going to go away. But once I got okay with that and quit searching for a cure, I don't know, it became a lot easier. We can only do so much, and sometimes you have to accept this is the best it's going to be. It can get better, but at this point in time, this is the best it's going to be. And as a parent, we have to choose our battles, and that's where a lack of judgment, where people need to be a little kinder and a little calmer and not judge us as much. If a child is wheelchair bound for the rest of their life and it's medically proven they're not going to walk ever again, are you going to judge the parent for that? I don't think so. Unrelated medical and psychological illnesses can complicate an autism diagnosis. A lot of children who don't have autism have a sensitivity to gluten, have food allergies. My oldest daughter has a milk allergy, and we couldn't figure out why. Anytime she had milk, after dinner on the nights that she had to do the dishes, it seemed that she would get sick and have to spend an hour in the bathroom. And we used to think, oh, well, that's just her trying to get out of doing the dishes. No, she was allergic to milk, and that night's meal had milk in everything that I cooked. And we didn't discover her severe milk allergy until she was 27, 26, something like that. And I like to bring up Jenny McCarthy. Not that I'm dissing her or talking bad about her or anything, but she wrote a book saying that she cured her son's autism because she put him on the gluten-free, casein-free diet. He had celiac disease. Celiac disease is not part of autism, but it can mimic autism. My boyfriend, they thought he was deaf. They thought he had ear issues for the first 12 years of his life. He learned to read lips, and he taught himself to read, but they thought he was slow and on the spectrum because his ears were so clogged because of milk allergies. When he was 12, he finally got tubes in his ears, and he stopped drinking milk, and it all cleared up, and now he has his hearing. But that's another illness that mimic that milk allergy. Here I go again with the food allergies. Food allergies can cause similar behaviors and delays as autism, but they are not related. An autistic person doesn't necessarily have celiac disease. Autoimmune disease that is triggered by ingesting gluten. Yes. And autoimmune diseases can run alongside autism. I have another friend who, her son, he's in his 30s now, he was born with some severe birth defects. Some medical, some psychological, but he also had autism, but they didn't diagnose the autism till he was in his adulthood, and they had already dealt with all of the other illnesses and medical conditions they had to. So autism can run along with, it can be a co-diagnosis, or as they call it, which I hate this word, a comorbidity. There's nothing morbid about it. It's not terminal or anything like that, but comorbidities are illnesses that are also part of this person. So, and I'm finding celiac disease, a lot more people are being diagnosed with celiac disease. And I don't think it's a new thing. I think it's been going on all along. I thought I had IBS for most of my life. I was constantly worried, do I have Crohn's disease? Do I have problems with my intestines? And when I switched to a vegan diet, I haven't had an IBS attack since I switched to a vegan diet. But if I eat something that has hidden milk in it, here we go with that dairy allergy again. If I eat something with hidden milk in it, I get sick to my stomach, So, leaky gut is not part of autism, but you can have autism and have leaky gut. Weed out what you can control, and then what you're left with is the autism. Nonverbal does not mean non-hearing. Nonverbal does not mean non-hearing. There's nothing wrong with my son's ears. He can hear teeth hitting bread at half a mile. Okay? Yeah. And, I'm vegan because of medical reasons, not because of PETA or anything else. It's because that's what works for my body. Do I recommend a vegan diet? Well, that depends. If it works for you, then yeah, I recommend it. If it's not, not something that's working for you, then no, I don't recommend it. But I think it's an individual thing. Yes, they have selective hearing. They choose not to hear, but I can be sitting in the living room talking with my caregiver. And if we're talking about something my son doesn't want me to talk about or he's not interested in, we can hear the volume in his room cranking up louder and louder until it gets so loud we can't talk. And that's our cue that he doesn't want me talking about that. Or if I'm talking to him about something that he doesn't want to hear, doesn't want to talk about, he'll look at me and say, cow, hiccup, hiccup, hiccup. And that's his way of saying, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to talk about it. And that's why I say, my son understands about COVID. My son watches the news. He hears very, very well. And that's why I have chosen to only let him hear things. I don't cuss around my son. I do cuss. I don't cuss around my son. I don't allow anyone else to cuss around my son. I've fired caregivers because they were careless with their speech and their language. And it's not just cuss words. If you use the R word in my house, you're gone. I don't allow that talk around my son. My son is very intelligent and he hears everything. And if you talk negatively about my son, I don't want you around. And so we don't go out in public a lot because, and it's not that he cares. He could care less. He could not care less about what people say about him. And people think that he just doesn't understand if they're making fun of him or whatever. No, he hears it. He just chooses not to react. He's very egocentric in that respect. But they hear and they know what's going on. And this goes back to they're having emotions. They don't understand emotions, but they do know when mom is sad or caregiver is tired or, people around them are just having an off day. They pick up on this. They hear your language. They hear the tone of your voice. My son, sometimes I'll call him by his first and middle name. And he knows if I say his first and middle name, it's serious. He can hear that. They hear very, very well, even if they don't speak with their mouth, and they communicate. They will find ways to communicate with you. I was watching one of the vloggers I watch sometimes is what's it called? Autism Dad, Autism Father. I wish Lisa was here. She could tell me. But I was watching how their daughter communicates, and she communicates with a mixture of words and sign language. CJ was synthesizing, or early on, he would use a little bit of sign language, but he would simplify it in that more please became this, where he'd do half of more on a circle on his chest, and that was more please. But the kids will find a way. Now, yes, with the selective hearing, my son is 15. So he definitely does the 15-year-old thing where he puts on the headphones and I'll be talking to him. And if he knows I'm just trying to make conversation and he doesn't feel like talking, I could, disco dance around the room and he's just not even going to hear me. But I can say, do you want Domino's? Instantly, yes. So just because they can't talk doesn't mean. And this is number 11. This is the last one that I wanted to share. If somebody has a diagnosis of autism, that diagnosis is individual to them. My autism is not your autism. My child may have some things in common with other children diagnosed with autism. However, there's not going to be two people diagnosed with autism that are exactly the same. Being an autism parent, I can see sometimes there's a similarity in the face. I don't know exactly what it is, but I can look at a child and go, oh my gosh, they're on the spectrum. I know they are because I've seen my son. But you do have, exactly, because you have night and day. And I don't think it has to do with one child is female and one child is male. I think it's definitely every autism diagnosis is individual to the person diagnosed, because autism is a spectrum disorder. It's a collection of behaviors and developmental delays, and it's an umbrella-shaped thing. So my autism is not your autism. And so that's why I'm not too hard on Jenny McCarthy, because, my autism is not her autism. However, I disagree with her on the one sticking point that you can cure your child of autism, because believe me, if there was a cure, I would have found it by now. I think that's one reason that my son only drinks water, is because we had him on Ensure shakes and different things like that, but I think it was upsetting his stomach, and I think he just finally learned not to eat the things that upset his stomach. And that's why his diet is so picky the way he is. I mean, it's a very simple lesson to learn. If I eat this and I feel sick, I'm not going to eat that again, It's just like if I stick my hand on the hot stove, it's going to burn me. So I'm going to not want to do that again. So I think that's one reason that my son is so picky with foods, is there are certain foods he doesn't like because they cause him physical distress. And so he just doesn't eat them. But when it comes down to the end of the day, I just make sure that there are things that he does enjoy eating, and when he gets hungry, he will eat. I make the food available, but I can't hold him down, My son doesn't take medicine. He won't take Tylenol or any kind of medicine. When he was about 5 or 6, I think it was, and I caught myself having to almost sit on his chest and, hold him down and try to force medication down his throat. I went, you know what? Yeah, and a day is a long time. And so, yeah, and it's hard to make that correlation. That was me, that I was drinking half and half in my coffee. And I loved the half and half, and it was great and everything. And then 5 o'clock that evening, my stomach would be upset. And I never attributed my upset stomach at 5 o'clock with the half and half in my coffee. And I'm neurotypical. So, well, maybe I'm not neurotypical. I am crazy, but no. But I'm neurotypical for the most part, and I turned 55 on Monday. So, I mean, it's understandable that she hasn't correlated the two. That, and again, doesn't have anything to do with the autism. That's just being a kid, My autism is not your autism, though. And so I think we're going to dig in depth on all of these coming up in the next bunch of weeks. I am enjoying doing this show. I was terrified to start doing something like this because we have been so judged, and we have been so persecuted, I want to say, in our small community here. And I was terrified that I little imposter syndrome, that maybe I didn't have the qualifications to do something like this. But I think this can be a safe place for people to ask their questions without fear. Because when it comes down to it, it's a lot of people's judgment is just misunderstanding. And it's because we're taught not to ask questions. We're taught to not stare at the disabled person. And with this, what I'm saying is, yeah, stare at my son. And but it's something I learned from when they first started implementing disability. When they first started with the public law, free appropriate public education for all, there were a lot of presentations and programs, and I was part of a puppet show that was all the puppets had some disability. And we went into the elementary schools and we allowed the kids to ask the puppet with cerebral palsy, how do you go to the bathroom? And those awkward questions that we were taught, oh, you don't ask that. That's, we gave them a safe space to ask those hard questions and dispel the misinformation. And I'm hoping that's what we can do here. Again, I'm not an expert, but I'm an expert on my son's autism. So bring your friends and family. Join us every Friday here, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Or watch the replays, share the replays out. I'm going to go ahead and go for today because it's quiet. It's one of the first days I've had by myself in the house in a year. I think I'm going to watch some TV and make myself some food. Peace and blessings upon you, upon all you love, and upon all who love you. Find your passion, grab a hold of it, do not let it go. Do not let anyone tell you how to feel or how to be. You are valid. Your thoughts are valid. Your emotions are valid. Your life is valid. Oh yeah, thank you. And we will see you Sunday. Sunday, I'm doing top 10 craft supplies I love from my local Dollar Tree. And that will be at 5 p.m. East Coast, 2 p.m. West Coast. And I look forward to seeing you then. Be good to each other and find some way to do some self-care today. Even if it's just 5 minutes, you lock yourself in the bathroom and have a little peace. Take care and bye for now. Do, 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 do.